Hello everyone and welcome to today's online event, The Scientific Basis of the Brazilian Agricultural Revolution. My name is Dave Keating. I'm coming at you from the heart of the EU Quarter for this first event in the Brazil Talks webinar series around sustainability, innovation, and productivity. I'd like to welcome our audience in Brazil, in Germany, and around the world. We have simultaneous translation today into English and German. Now, Brazil is currently not only one of the biggest food producers in the world, but it's also a center of innovation in several areas, especially those related to food and energy production. On one hand, Brazil is advantaged by its natural characteristics, but on the other hand, innovation has worked hand in hand with those characteristics. Research and innovation have played a fundamental role in the development of Brazilian agriculture. Today we're going to hear more about how this research played a role in the Brazilian agricultural revolution of the 20th century, and how it's also playing a role in the agricultural changes taking place today. We'll also talk about some of the challenges Brazil is facing, such as illegal deforestation. We'll talk about how legislation is complied with or isn't complied with. We'll talk about good practices to learn from, and we'll talk about how this challenge of illegal deforestation will continue to be tackled in the future. Now, you all at home will be able to ask your questions to the panelists by typing into the Slido field to the right of your screen. You can go ahead and type in your questions now if you already know what they will be, and I will read them out to the panelists at the end of the panel. So, let me start by introducing the panelists we have for today. We have with us today Eduardo Sampaio, Chief of Staff at the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply of Brazil. We have Professor Dr. Stefan Sieber, Associate Professor at Humboldt University of Berlin and Coordinator of the Sustainable Land Use in Developing Countries Initiative, SUSLAND, at the Leibniz Center for Agricultural Landscape Research. We have Dr. Michel Bonatti, Lecturer on Environmental Policy at Humboldt University of Berlin and Deputy Coordinator of SUSLAND. We have Enrique Reis, International Coordinator of Supera Parque, which is a startup incubator in Brazil. And we have Flavio Greenspan, CEO of iCore Brazil, which is another startup incubator. Thank you all for being with us today. Eduardo Sampaio, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about how research and innovation has changed agriculture in Brazil, both for this agricultural revolution that took place in the 20th century, but also in the more recent times. Eduardo? Are you there, Eduardo?
I'm not listening perfectly. May I begin to talk now? Because I'm not listening perfectly.
Okay,
but
yes,
if
please
everything
begin.
okay, I can talk now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Eduardo. I've been working here at this agency for the last 24 years. I'm an agronomist, and I promise that in 1 year time, I'll be talking in Dutch. Okay. Basically, Brazilian agriculture had a huge increase in productivity in the last decades due to the use of technology. I think I can say that we have finally learned how to manage our tropical soils. In the last 25 to 30 years, we began to give a big more importance to organic matter, to soil correction, especially in depth, so the plants can stand more the dry periods. And one very special thing we have developed is double cropping. In more than 20 million hectares, more than 21 million hectares this year, people are planting early harvest soybean varieties, which contain a lot of technology as well, because they are varieties developed to our conditions. So they plant early harvest soybean varieties, and they can plant in the center and north and center west of Brazil corn or cotton, and in the south, wheat, in the same harvest season without irrigation. So there are 21 million hectares that are planted twice in the same year. This means a lot in terms of intensity of soil use. And the economists, they like to measure what they call the total factor, the total productivity, total factor productivity, which measures the increase in output, which cannot be explained by the increase in inputs. And if we compare, if we take, for example, in Brazil, from 1975 to last year, to 2020, the product grew more than 5 times. And the total productivity factor grew about 4 times. Compared to other countries, only China surpassed Brazil. If we take a more recent period, Brazil is the country where the total factor of productivity has grew more. It's growing more, it's growing faster. That means that we are using a lot more efficiently soil, labor, and capital. I think these are my initial words. I'm here for the discussions we can have further.
Great, thank you very much, Eduardo. Stefan Sieber, let's turn to you next. Tell us, how has international cooperation in research and innovation changed agriculture? We just heard how the Brazilian innovation has done so, but there's also been international cooperation that has helped as well, right?
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Yes, we and at the Leibniz Center for Agricultural Landscape Research, we are one of the 4 big, let's say, research associations, and around 400 people working here in this center. And I'd like to address your question with majorly 2 points. One is that we have a long-lasting cooperation with Brazil. That's very important that we started in 2007 with developing tools for sustainable land use with EU finance programs, and also, and this gives us already and indicates already trends, with a Claris project that it is on climate assessment and adaptation, a better adaptation to climate change. This entails already this trend, what has changed in the last decade. We had a project on COVID impacts on agriculture. There you see that we have also major challenges also with pandemics. And we have also the agri-political dialogue program from the Ministry of Agriculture, where we try to initiate a dialogue program for increasing standards in sustainable trade on wood. This is the supply chain law. There you see that several topics are already tackled here, and I'd like only to address here very few key names here. The bioeconomy is looking for new added value processes in order to have added value generated from natural resources. And the One World Without Hunger initiative from the Ministry of Economic Cooperation, as well as the climate initiative from the Ministry of Environment. There you see, I just framed some of those initiatives from different ministries, and you see there is a long-lasting, over many, many years, cooperation between Brazil and Germany. And just let me bring 5 major trends I see here. First of all, it's precision agriculture, what we have heard, really, how we can really safeguard inputs or reduce inputs with the same output level, that we see we can keep the productivity, but we use less inputs. This is the intensity. This is with precision agriculture, with technology. Secondly, it is climate change, and we know that there is a big challenge, how we can adapt to climate change a better way, and how we can mitigate CO2 emissions in order to keep the 1.5 degree goal and objective. Thirdly, it is the information systems. We generate systematically a lot of knowledge in research, and we have to provide to the farming sector this kind of knowledge. And I'd like to briefly just introduce here the ICT solution. That means the apps, the smartphone apps as one example, that we can provide exactly those knowledge, what has been generated to the farmers. That's very important. Then we need to increase the productivity level. That means the quantity of produce. And how we do this, you have heard maybe about the sustainable intensification concept, about greening, climate smart agriculture. That means all concepts to increase productivity on the one hand side, but looking at also at the same time at a sustainability aspect. That's very important for us in research also to work in a transdisciplinary way, involving the stakeholders on the ground and working on concepts that are more sustainable and also are increasing productivity to the same extent. And I just briefly say here, new technologies, this is point number 5, artificial intelligence as one point, machine learning, what we have heard, and also up to the level that is really new research that robots also help in order to maybe eradicate or delete weeds on the field, on the plots. That's something that is maybe the future outlook. And the bioeconomy as well. That means looking for how to use natural resources and to bring added value, and then also to protect natural resources at the same time. With this, I have finished my talk and I'm looking forward to discuss with you today.
But Michelle, let's turn to you next. So we just heard from Stefan there's some of the international cooperation that's been going on. And obviously this research and innovation is in lots of different areas. What do you find to be some of the most interesting areas right now for agricultural research and innovation? Michelle, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Well, thank you for giving me the floor. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think addressing directly your question, Brazilian agriculture innovation has different faces and different actors behind. One of the key sectors here also is the family small farmers, and specifically innovative issues that they are promoting. I definitely should mention the work and efforts that are done in terms of research and biodiversity regarding genetic seed banks, for example, land races as in situ and ex situ farmers' fields and conservation regarding safeguard, for example, agrobiodiversity with local seeds, land races, and there is a lot already proved scientifically and published in terms of genetic improvement with seeds that are not only promoting biodiversity, but are more resistant to weather extreme events, which tends to increase with climate change. So I think one of the key areas of research innovation is definitely agrobiodiversity and landrace. And there is also a lot done in terms of urban agriculture. Here I can see also one specific study case, which is called Bucket Revolution. For the people from Brazil, it's called Revolução dos Baldinhos. And this is decentralized waste management. It means that the organic material, the organic residue of communities, of low-income communities in the south of Brazil, they are being transformed in compost to then be transformed in gardens and promote food security in those kind of communities. This composting technology promoting agriculture at local level, it's also a high, well-evaluated socio-ecological technology from the agriculture perspective in Brazil. Thank you. I will be happy also to continue the discussion.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. Let's turn to Enrique next. So I think your contribution here is really invaluable, you and Flavio, because you'll be able to really tell us the business aspect on the ground, these startups that you guys are involved in. So what kind of projects exist between Europe and Brazil to help startups really take advantage of all this research and innovation we've been hearing about?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the floor. Hello, everybody. Well, first of all, one of the main points that we have here is that we can discuss some collaborations between companies from Germany and companies in Brazil. Here in Supera Park, we are one of the parks that we have a very knowledge. We are very known because of the region, and of course because of all the contacts and all the network that we have here are from agriculture business and agriculture. We have a lot of companies in agritechs. What we can see here that that is growing very fast are a lot of project that has a collaboration between IoT inside platforms inside the farms. So we can have a lot of precision agriculture. We can have a lot of platforms that can go not only for the small farmers but also for huge farmers and companies that have a lot of uh, places in a lot of states here. And always like to see to the future that when we have this collaboration between the technology that you can have in Europe and what we can have here in South America, we can start having this collaboration. We can have some mutual agreements between the companies and also trying to seek the most of it for each part. I believe that in the further discussions we can have some thoughts about what kind of collaborations we can have, what kind of projects and initiatives we have from the Brazilian side, but I would like to also hear about something from the German side as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Enrique. Thanks, Enrique. So Flavio, let's turn to you next. Let's get more of the domestic perspective from you. How have startups contributed to and benefited from Brazil's agricultural revolution?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for giving me the floor. So let me start mentioning that the startups here in Brazil play a very important role. Startups, science-based startups, are something new. We didn't have that concept in place until the 2016-17. I was fortunate to be working with startups since 2016. I trained more than 500 startups, so I've been following them. So we expect those science-based startups to become the backbone of the future Brazilian agriculture. So there is a very important role we expect for the startups in this revolution. So all of our startups we are working are startups that came out from research at universities, research at research institutes. And they not only were born from research, but they are going to grow with the research. They cannot grow without research. So they keep a partnership with local research organizations. And they grow, and they have to grow worldwide. They are not only looking for the Brazilian, to support the Brazilian agriculture. They need to become competitive worldwide. So the startups that we are working, the Institute of Science, ICORP Brazil, are startups of this side. That means we stimulate them to look to the global market. So they have to become competitive. They have to bring foreign investment, and they have to grow and compete in the market. And we have some examples today, just for you to understand the size. Our institute today has association with 85 startups. From those 85, 49 are from the agro area. 25 health, and 11 are technology oriented. So we are dealing with many startups, and we expect them to become the future of Brazil industrial effort and the business effort. So our startups have to look how they need to attend the needs of the global market. So we have startups already in Europe. They have patents worldwide. They have business going on in Europe with European partners. For example, there is one startup that works with precision agriculture that's working with Coopert in France and in Netherlands, working with Veracruz farm in Portugal. We have other startups working, including in German, called FIT. They do nuclear magnetic resonance equipment. So our startups are born to become competitive worldwide, to become a new business that could bring technologies and knowledge from the universities, from research into the private sector. So we have significant expectations for the future of the Brazilian agriculture through startups. So that's the role that we expect from the startups. And we've been working with, as I mentioned, 85 of them. And we have new technologies in the environmental area, in cattle production, in new forms of production of proteins from vegetables, to create vegetable meat, vegetable shrimp, vegetable pork. So we have startups working on this. So they are in the leading areas of the new research that's coming out. So we expect them to become a major player. And also, just to mention, we just created a new project that we also have expectations on the carbon market. We are producing carbon. We expect that these projects that produce carbon would be influencing the environment through offering way to mitigation the emission of CO2, and also in segregating and absorbing CO2 in their projects. So we think that we are working in something that it's called the voluntary corporate carbon market. That means companies that voluntarily are looking for projects to compensate their emissions. And so this has been a major issue here in Brazil. And we are working in our institutes to create companies that produce carbon, so they can eventually sell those carbon in the market. And we like to invite our partners in Germany, in Europe, to become also a part of this process. We offer our platform for them to put their projects, so we can work together to get to emphasize this activity from the voluntary carbon market. And I'll be waiting to participate for the discussions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Flavio. So really, sustainability is a real focus there for the innovation that's going on. I want to come back to that when we're talking about the current and future innovation, but let's go back to the past first. I want to go back to Eduardo. You gave us kind of a little history lesson there at the beginning about the agricultural revolution in Brazil. Tell me, what were the enabling factors in Brazil that allowed for this agricultural revolution to take place in the 20th century? What was really essential? Because I think that will be interesting to other countries, the ingredients for that revolution.
Okay, thank you. I think I can point some factors I believe that were very important. We still have a set of very important public institutions research for agricultural research. We are a federation here. We have state-level companies like in Minas Gerais, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, Paraná, São Paulo. We have very important companies. For example, in coffee, still the state company from São Paulo, Instituto Agronômico de Campinas, it's one of the most important institutions for developing coffee varieties. But also, we have a very important role played by the farmers themselves. It's not very easy to explain, but probably because Brazil is too big and things are difficult to reach at the farm side. And the farmers themselves, they are very innovative, especially in the recent past. I'll give one example. It's a very strong example. No-tillage is fundamental for Brazil, the no-tillage way of planting. You plant without plowing the soil, as most people do in temperate climates. And we don't plow anymore. And no-tillage was developed initially by farmers. They developed the machinery, then they had the help of the big companies that produce herbicides. And later on, Embrapa jumped in and improved the system. But it was initially done by the farmers. And for the last, but not the least important, is the respect to intellectual property rights. After we began to grant these rights, big companies came in and they developed a lot of varieties, but only for the main crops: soybean, cotton, maize, and for the crops we use for subsistence here. I can point red beans. It's very important it's a staple food for us. Embrapa still is the main player. But anyway, I can summarize: the farmers themselves, respect for intellectual property rights, and mostly in the past, the public research institutions.
Stefan, from your perspective, what do you think were really the essential ingredients for this innovation that's taken place in Brazil so far?
Yes. Well, I would like to support exactly this, what happened normally, that we look nowadays also more in these holistic approaches. That means that we have a number of factors that drive success. And that was exactly also mentioned already. And I'd like to maybe mention nowadays in research that we work very much in a transdisciplinary way. What does it mean? That means that if there is a research project, that we look in a co-design approach. That means we have the stakeholders at a regional level. We come together, we sit on a round table, and we discuss at the beginning the major challenges and what can be improved. And this is a joint action at the one hand side. That means it's a partnership approach. And research is accompanying this process. That you can imagine that you would be in a region with a lot of challenges in a certain region, and to say, okay, how can we make it more sustainable? And then jointly we develop solutions for this. It might be that there are stakeholder involvements, the actors on the ground on the one hand side, and then looking at the success factors. And it was mentioned already, and what we see nowadays is that all factors that drive success should be introduced to the same extent. That means credits is one, knowledge, that is capacity building is one, that is also the technology itself, and then looking whether this, what has been proposed as a new solution, also fits into the context at a farm level. And that's very important. Quite often we provide solutions that do not match well with the exactly site-specific frame conditions on the ground. And there we need to match a better way between the local level and also between this, what is provided. And this quite often also, and this is our experience, does not match all the time. And therefore it is important to involve the stakeholders from the beginning onwards.
Thanks a lot, Stefan. I think that makes sense from an evolution standpoint. Michelle, what about you? What do you think were really the essential ingredients and the enabling factors that brought about this agricultural revolution?
Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting question, and I really support what my colleagues have said, Stefan and Eduardo. I think the local knowledge, the farmer knowledge, definitely play a big role in Brazil agriculture and all the innovations that being implemented. That's why it's so important to develop with them in terms of research, all that we have been conducted, as Stefan mentioned too. I would add it to this one point to this, which is the arrangements in terms of rural extension service that Brazil have. It's not common in not all the countries that, for example, we have been doing research have such a structure in terms of give a support to the farmers to have really agronomists in touch with the farmers in their field experiments and trying and implemented different kind of solutions for the problems that they have in their farm. So I think I would add it to what was already said, the arrangements in terms of rural extension service that Brazil has at state level and also at a national level, for example, as companies as Embrapa. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Enrique, what about you? What do you think were the real enabling factors here, particularly from the perspective of startups?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I believe that, as Dr. Stephen already mentioned, this map making that we need to have between the common knowledge that we have from both sides. This is the key point that we can achieve, and that this is actually the goal that we can have to provide a solution that can have this map making inside both countries. And I also believe that having these collaborations between the companies is one of the best options that we have to trying to mitigate this kind of problem of communications, problem of difference of knowledge. And inside the Supero, we have an initiative that's called a soft landing program that is designed especially to these companies that would like to internationalize them inside the Brazilian market, but they don't know where to start. So I believe that not only from our side, but we have a lot of projects with this goal that is trying to create these arrangements and having this arrangement between the startup and a huge company and a startup in a medium, or even itself and a startup with a smaller company, but both of them are working with the same solution, but from different sides, from different frames. But we can put them to work together to have a solution that can be the best one from for the both sides. So I believe that having this map making with these initiatives, with these projects, it's one of the best options and best solutions that we can have to mitigate this risk, to mitigate these problems that we can have between between these two countries that are very different, but we can have a lot of solutions that can work not only here but in German as well. Thank you very much, Dave, for the question.
Thanks. Flavia, what about you? What do you think were the essential enabling factors here?
Let me give you my impression is the following. The startup is not a research institute. Startup is not a large business. Start is something in between. And the advantage of the startup is that it not only has to do something that works for the farmer, but also has to survive, has to have enough money to be able to continue and to grow. So they are not a project oriented. They have to create a solution for a problem. So they don't sell the result of the research. They understand the problem of the farmer and develop a solution to solve the problem. Because without solving a problem, nobody's going to pay. The farmer is not going to pay. So the startup has the disadvantage. It has to solve a major problem in order to survive. And also has to be a problem that can grow fast. Without this problem, nobody's going to invest in the startup. So the startup prepares itself to become a good investment for the private sector, to invest in new business. So I think the startup solves major problems on the interface. Take the research results, transform into a solution of a major problem, and able to bring investors to invest in that solution to grow and to become a competitor in the market. So my role is to see that the startups can survive during the transition phase, and also that we could have startups that are able to, like the ones I mentioned, to become a global player, including the one the business to business is a very good strategy for a startup, and we could be working together with European partners in all of this.
So that's the history. Let's talk about where we are right now. Eduardo, in the current situation that Brazil finds itself in for agriculture, what are the areas of agricultural innovation that Brazil is more advanced in compared to other countries? And what are the areas in which it is behind compared to other countries?
May I start?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm not listening very well here, but okay. I can give like two perspectives for this question. Brazilian agriculture is very heterogeneous, it's very big, very diverse. Usually there are huge regional differences. So taking this regional approach first, I can say that in the semi-arid region, mainly in the northeastern region of Brazil, agriculture is still, they still use less technology in general. Although even that region have some very specific sites where they produce fruits in a very high standard way.
I think we lost Eduardo there. Let's go to Stefan for the same question. Stefan, where do you think Brazil is more ahead in terms of agricultural technology and innovation, and where is it behind compared to other countries?
Well, maybe I would frame it a bit differently, that also Brazil is hit by the climate change, of course, and that typically there are vast regions where one need really to have the major challenge to see how we can build resilience. And I would bring in this resilience here as a big topic, how we can better adapt to climate change, and as a biggest challenge in the north, for example, in order to have kept or to stabilize a productivity loss that may happen due to climate change. That is something I'd like to push here forward, and therefore we need research, and we need exactly systems that predict, also given or based on scenarios. You all know this IPCC scenarios, but also beyond this, it is, for example, crop modeling, saying what will happen. And this is climate proofing as a challenge, where I see, yes, we need concepts for the future, and we need, and I just give you some examples here, we need combinations of variables and factors that can have as an approach also adapt better to climate change. That is, for example, shifting the sowing dates. That might be also developing and breeding better seeds for drought resistance seeds. It might be a combination of new management practices that might be also, and I'd like also to bring here a big topic of restoration. And restoration is really an overall umbrella key term where I would say, yes, we need, and Brazil needs also to restore. There was mentioned the carbon market by Flavio, to restore with sort of new income sources the land that is degraded. And that is something where also Brazil has a huge potential to also improve the land by restoration. One example would be intercropping. If there is a drought, if there is a semi-arid region, to test new technologies and also to test new management strategies like intercropping, where you have trees in between the normal crops. You stabilize the microclimate. You have longer moisture holding capacity in soils, and then you stabilize at the very end yields. And this is one of those techniques I would see that is a really huge potential. And this, and we call it social ecological systems, this with a combination of people-centered approaches. That means the people have to be involved and they have to push and to develop these kinds of solutions at a regional level, because each adaptation strategy is region explicit. Thank you for this.
Michelle, how about you? Where do you think Brazil is ahead in terms of innovation, and where is it behind?
I think I can give some examples where we really see clearly the Brazil is ahead in terms of, as I said before, socio-ecological innovations in the frame of agriculture. For example, the decentralization of waste management and using this for composting. For example, this is one of the kinds of urban agricultures that address not only food production, but also other social problems. And I think here it's important to mention that also in the frame of the development conditions that we have in Brazil, it's important to consider that agriculture also plays a role in terms of social development. So there is a multiple role of agriculture in terms of we can promote it and how many different kind of challenges it can address at the same time. For example, in terms of biodiversity conservation, climate change, and all those other factors. So I think those kind of innovations Brazil is heading, and kind of innovative strategies that address different kinds of challenges. On the other hand, I think it's still needed very clear support for development of climate smart agriculture. So really be prepared for the future change that we will face. So I think here there is still a room for research development, which kind of strategies will help the farmers to adapt to the new scenarios that are proposed. We recently conduct the research group, part of our research group, conduct research that was published also in Nature, and you see clearly that Latin America, at least from the research, from the scientific literature, has been at least published less in agriculture climate adaptation strategies. So we are probably needing to at least report better what has been done in terms of climate adaptation. And I think also this, as I said before, had a combination of also public policies that helps to improve the livelihood of small farmers. I think this is something that we can improve. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Enrique, what do you think from the perspective of startups? Where is Brazil more advanced and where is it less advanced?
Thank you, Dave, for the question. Actually, I already said that what we have here in Supera is that we have a lot of projects that are designed for collaboration between the IoT inside the agriculture. So I believe that thinking about nationally, we have a lot of companies that are working with these phases, and also I can see from some companies that we have here and some other companies that are even developing in Brazil, it's for the biological control. So this, especially the biological control, I can see that are something that in Europe is growing, but not so fast. Where a lot of countries are facing some issues to find the best solution inside this frame. And I also believe that thinking about the Brazilian market, what kind of companies that we are behind from, let's say, Europe or North America. Also, it's about the machinery. I believe that we are having some change in that, but because of the value that we need from the machinery especially for a small farmer, inside this crop, inside this frame, the small farmer, he has a lot of problems because of maybe an old machinery, or he needs a solution for that. So every time that I see that we face a problem here, there's also an opportunity that a company or someone can have an idea to develop this. And this is what since in Brazil we have some issues, we are facing a lot of opportunities that are already emerging from small farmers, emerging from some centers of technology that are designated for these farmers or for the agriculture. And one of these problems is what I mentioned, the biological control. So I see that we are facing some problems, but at the same time, we have the opportunity to create or to develop a solution for these problems. Thank you, Dave.
And Flavia, what about you? What do you think, where is Brazil more advanced and where is it less advanced?
Let me tell you what I can see from my startups, where they are going. I think that Henrique mentioned something important, is that we see many startups working on bringing biology into the agriculture. So we have biological control, we have biological new products to attack specific issues. And we see biology being used in climate change. And startups love problems. So I think the climate change challenge is going to be a heaven for the startups. They'll be able to concentrate on big problems and get solutions and eventually grow from trying to solve them. So the startups can use challenges. They are used to do that. I can see, so biology is one of the issues. I see now another trend is the data trend. The agriculture is becoming data agriculture. So we can, with the management of agriculture issues inside a farm, is an issue of using correctly data. That you are going to be able to connect sensors to collect information. we can connect this information with many aspects on the farm management. So I see that this is going to be the next phase of the precision agriculture using data. I'm talking about machine learning, I'm talking artificial intelligence, big data issues, and similar use of robotics, similar use of new technology. We are behind in one aspect on using data, that is communications. Our small farmers don't have convenient access to the internet. So we are behind of allowing those small farmers to be able to participate in large projects. So communications is a critical issue that we are behind. We still don't have 5G applied in the field. 5G will permit that you can control parts of the agriculture online, because 5G has almost no delay. So we are going to create new processes that are managed online when we introduce 5G in the field. So I do believe that this is the critical issue, to have enough information, enough access from the farmers, for the farmers, to be able to use convenient all the knowledge that could be applied to them. So we hope that if we do the same seminar next year, Brazil is going to be in a better situation. And another thing that I'm seeing now, because I work with agriculture startups and health startups, there is a merge. The problems are becoming similar. The problems in health area and the problems in agriculture are become similar. And we are going to have something that Professor Stephen has mentioned, a way to create solutions that involve different aspects of the knowledge. So we're not going to have a partition, agriculture here, health is there. We are going to be working on problems. And eventually this will bring knowledge that exists inside one area to be applied in the other area. Not only through foods, but also through the basic idea of identifying solutions for crop growth, increased productivity, pest management, and so on. We are going to be using a lot of what we learned from the health area. One point that I want to complement that we suffer in Brazil is the issue of registration. The startups have difficulty in registering their products inside the Ministry of Agriculture because it takes a long time, and startups don't have much time. They die. And so this is an issue that we have to solve internally, but we need to increase the possibility for a startups to survive until it has making all the registration to be able to sell in the market. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think we have Eduardo connected again. Eduardo, let's go back to you for this question. Yes, great. So where is Brazil more ahead and where is it behind compared to other countries?
Okay, I'm sorry for the problem. Let's go very quickly here. I will give two approaches, the regional approach and the commodity approach. Then I'll give a final comment in 2 minutes. If I take regionally, the semi-arid region in Brazil, which is concentrated in the northeastern region, we still really practice agriculture with less technology over there. The nature conditions are very difficult. The farms are very small. The farmers are poor, and they don't have access to technology. And really, that region is falling behind the others. If we take a commodity point of view, we can see that the big ones they are doing very well. Soybean, maize, coffee, cotton, rice, even rice, it's okay. if you go to the poultry production, we have a very interesting and a very competitive way that the market organizes itself. With small farmers produce to the big companies that process meat and sell, especially for poultry and pork. But I will add something to what Flavio just said. Agriculture is a very fertile land nowadays for new opportunities. And this I can add for the other question as well. I gave a historic perspective over there. But nowadays, we have plenty of opportunities. We have 5 million farmers. I'll give very round figures here. About 500,000, they are medium to big size farmers. We have a bit more than 1 million that are family farmers, but they are competitive. Have a bit more than 2 million farmers that are family farmers that can be competitive. They're still not. And they need technology. They are willing to pay for that. They have access to credit. It's not perfect, but they do have. And so we have a big field for a big market for new innovations. Even we have already a lot of ag techs. They work with precision agriculture. Now they are working with biopesticides, increasing very fast in Brazil. The use of biopesticides, even in farm solutions. The fintechs, they are providing a lot of interesting financial solutions for farmers. There is a big market, a big interest for the farmer side in carbon monitoring, and carbon, because they are reading this, they are looking after this carbon market, and even to these companies that want to work with green finance. There is a market as well to deforestation and environmental monitoring in farms. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Thanks a lot. So we've had lots of questions come in from the audience, and a lot of them are on deforestation, which I was going to ask anyway. So let me put some of these questions to you. Stefan, let's start with you. So the question we have here is from Nicole Polsterer from Fern. In fact, actually, Eduardo, I'll have you answer this first. So Brazil has previously decoupled productivity from deforestation, but currently, unfortunately, deforestation is on the rise. What will Brazil do to stop deforestation? So Eduardo, would you agree that deforestation is on the rise, and what actions is Brazil taking to combat illegal deforestation?
Yes, thank you for the question, Nicole. Yes, it's undeniable that deforestation is on the rise. They've put it very correctly. That's decoupled from the productivity, because most farmers they work with their land and they are increasing productivity. But deforestation occurs more than, I'll give a word on this, okay? More than half of it is occurring in public land. We have here in Brazil what we call here non-designated land. It's very difficult to translate it to English and probably to German as well. It's a public land that's not national.
Okay, we lost it.
Nature preservation. Okay, I'll go
yes,
back again
okay.
About the. Okay. Most of the deforestation is happening in what we call non-designated land, which is a very difficult expression to be translated into English and probably into German. It's public land that's not yet designated. What means designated? It's not a preservation area, not a national park. It's not an area designated for the Indian people, for our indigenous people here in Brazil. It's a public area that has no destination. So it's a kind of public land, is no man's land, and we are working to do what we call here the land, or I put here yesterday the expression in English, the land regularization. We have to know who is the owner of the land. This is the first step to control deforestation. And if you go to deforestation that occurs in the farms, inside the farms, we are working in another field. We have the CAR, which we call it the National Environmental Registration of the Land. It's a legal obligation in Brazil. that the farmers declared what happened in their land. We are now helping the states because this is an obligation of the states. We are a federation, we have states, like Germany have provinces, we have states here. We are helping them to use IT, information technology, using satellite images and IT instruments to check what the farmers declared. And we have already ran some tests, and by and large, it's okay. But we are validating these registrations. Then we can go after the farmers and tell, oh, okay, you are irregular here. You should, according to our law, you should replace this piece of land with forests again, because we have these legal reserves that the farmers has to have they have to have in their farms. So, summarizing, deforestation is a problem. It's not directly linked to agriculture, and we are trying to work on that. But it's a problem. It's really rising in the last years.
Interesting. So, Stefan, from your perspective, what is Brazil doing in order to combat deforestation? We've heard there that there's been this decoupling, but of course it is rising. What have you observed in terms of trends there?
Yes, well, it is. I recently am also in contact with initiatives, German initiatives, in order really to try to mitigate at least deforestation. And I'm not in the position now to judge about the policy, but what I can say is that, of course, from the German position, there is a need to mitigate and to break this process. And there is a belt of deforestation belt where, of course, there is a need also exactly the land tenure, and that the land use and cadastre is really matching, and that the land titles are very clear. That is a need, of course, that has been also done in the agricultural land, and that should be also, of course, in general terms, it should be also done in terms of land tenure to the same extent where forest is. And the major, I would say, challenge is also to look at governance models. And this is a challenge I see also, and I'm in contact also with several initiatives here to say, yeah, who can control maybe this illegal deforestation? Once it is designated and the land title is clear, step 2 would be who controls it? And there we have in research a high number of evidence also. And this is also according to Elinor Ostrom, that one say, yes, the governance system, that means the people on the ground, they should have a certain role to control it a better way. And there is one key term that is often used is the result-based payments. That means that one collaborate with the communities on the ground and say, yes, you have the right and you are empowered to control also illegal deforestation. And that should be one entry point from our position to say, yes, we try the best initiatives possible to find those kind of approaches at a community level that at the same time control exactly this. This is normally the best evidence one have if we set up governance models to control illegal deforestation. And that's my point here. Yes.
Michelle, when we talk about illegal deforestation in Brazil, it obviously has an effect on the agricultural landscape. How has deforestation affected Brazil's agricultural landscape? You're on mute.
I think definitely the deforestation, it's a huge but very complex problem, and it also depends in which area of Brazil you're looking the problem and how it's structured. I think also the actors, and here not only the agriculture actors, they play a big role. I think there is not only affecting in terms of all the loss of biodiversity and environmental problems affecting, also correlated with the potentializing climate change, for example, and all the impacts in terms of sustainability that we know that deforestation causes. But it's also economic problem to Brazil in terms of cooperation, for example, and how the cooperation decrease in terms of also how to reach the standards for exportation, commercialization under those kind of environmental problems. So I think affects the landscape in terms of the loss of biodiversity and also the problems that's the poor soils that it can generate, but also it's related to how we cooperate, for example, and which kind of standards we are established in terms of products and how we are cooperating this. On the other hand, I think it's also there is initiatives in terms of how to agriculture, for example, and different kind of systems, agriculture systems, sustainable agriculture systems could help to do the opposite and help to reforestation. For example, we have initiatives in silvopastoral system and sustainable cacao, all the kind of agriculture systems that could support to revert a little bit the process of deforestation.
Okay, I have a question here from the audience that I want to put to Enrique. It's on a different topic. I should note also, by the way, if you're watching this in German and you're hearing me in German right now, if you want to ask a question, you just need to go to the main page, the English page, to type in the question, because I know that the German video doesn't have the input for the questions. So, Enrique, this is a question from Mark Tonkin from Hope Resources. He says, there is a huge potential for converting agricultural waste biomass, forestry management waste biomass, as well as mixed unsegregated municipal waste into hydrogen in Brazil. Is hydrogen a component part of environmental sustainability in Brazil? I wonder, Enrique, do you know of any startups working in this area?
Thank you, Dave, and I also would like to thank Mark for the question. Well, I can say about the community that we have here. So not only the companies that we have in contact inside the Supera Park, but also in the region. About this specific point about hydrogen, I'm not aware of it, but I believe that since Brazil is a huge country with a lot of startups, and depending on the state or depending on the region that this startup is based, it can have a lot of differences between the main point, that the main solution, the main tech that they are developing. But about this specific point, I'm not aware of it. But I also believe that one of the key points of having these events is not only to show what kind of solutions are already emerging and already being developed, but also the change, the experience and the informations that we can have. Maybe one of the startups that we have here can divert their research and divert their main point to this kind of main objective, and both of the companies can start working inside this new technology or this new solution. So I always like to present that even though that we are not on in a new technology, we can have a discussion about this new perspective and having diversion, and we can have some companies that can start working with this from both sides. Thank you, Mark, and also thank you, Dave, for the question.
Thanks. Let me put this question to Eduardo as well. Eduardo, is there a strategy for this from the government on this idea of converting waste to hydrogen?
Not so far. Not so far. I think we still don't have a specific public policy for that. We have some policies to convert biomass into energy in general, but not in hydrogen, green hydrogen, as they say so far. But it's a coincidence. Yesterday night, I had a meeting with a fertilizer manufacturer here in Brazil. They are in the state of Bahia, in Northeast, and they are just building a new plant to produce what they call green hydrogen from solar energy and from wind energy. And they are going to produce what they say green ammonium, which will be a green nitrogen fertilizer in the end of the day. Okay, but we don't have still.
I think we lost Eduardo again. No, I think he's gone. Michelle, let me put a question to you that's come in from Tias Suarez. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. So a question for Michelle. Thank you for bringing in agro-biodiversity and seed-saving initiatives. What are your thoughts on how seed sovereignty and local knowledge is being discussed nationally?
Has been discussion nationally? The question was at national level?
Yes, at national level, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think there is different programs and depends also from the state here. I mean, there is also initiatives at national level that has changed in the last decades with the change of policies also. So this frame is at the national level. It has changed a lot on the last decades and how this could support those kind of initiatives. There is also initiatives at national level, for example, with Embrapa, and we work closely to Embrapa here. So I think this is important to highlight. There is initiatives with Embrapa, and Embrapa also work sometimes, in the case of Santa Catarina, for example, close to EPAGRE, which is the rural extension service company at state level, so that support this kind of sovereignty initiatives as bring on the question to contribute to the farmers to have autonomy in terms of selecting their own seeds and also being less dependent of external inputs here. So I think the main initiatives that get support from the government in the case of the areas that we study come from the state level with the environmental service, but also with the universities, which in general support a lot the agriculture or the farmers and the field, but also give a value to the initiatives by researching and by publishing it scientifically to prove, for example, the value of those seeds and the value of the importance for agrobiodiversity. There is other cases of this genetic pool that are studied for example, in Mexico also, and all the Andean area. And this also become common in Brazil, and it's very important to highlight this. Thank you for the question.
Thanks. So I want to take this next question. It's on CRISPR research, and I'm not sure who might be best placed to answer this. Let me put out the question and see which of you would like to talk about it. The question is from Sabu. Please comment on what CRISPR-related research is currently being studied in Brazil, and if applicable, in what crops? Does anyone feel equipped to talk about CRISPR?
Very superficial here. I know that some universities really, they have already developed something on using this kind of technology. Embrapa is working with it as well. I don't know any new variety that was released in the last times using CRISPR, but new medicines or the medicine production using biotech, yes, we have already something using CRISPR. I know that the regulation for CRISPR in Brazil is very alike the regulation for GM. They have to press through the same kind of approval, and unfortunately, that's all I can say.
Anyone else on CRISPR? No, okay. So let me put this next question to Flavio. This question comes from Gerard. And Flavio, let me know if you know of some startups working in this area. Gerard says, speakers have spoken of the productivity efficiency benefits of precision agriculture. I'd like to know if Brazil has been able to incentivize powerful suppliers of inputs, like chemicals, feeds, and fertilizers, who by definition sell less through more efficient use of inputs. Do you have any thoughts, Flavio, on this productivity efficiency benefit?
Yeah, we have just the origin of the startup is the research. If there is a research going on at universities and research institutes, there is a large probability that we're going to spin off a startup. So startups work from the research. And this is an area, yes, on precision agriculture that we have a lot of research universities being done. So it's not uncommon to have a startup working on areas to analyze precision agriculture to decrease the amount of inputs. I have a few examples, and because you see, the startup has to work on the field and needs to have customers. If they don't have customers, they die. So if it's a problem that exists in the fields, they are going to be working on those problems. We have some startups working in this direction, in doing biological control, doing minimizing use of inputs. And we have other precision agriculture startups. I mentioned one that's working with copper in France and Netherlands. So they supply the equipment for copers to create the solution for the biological control, minimizing the use of pesticides. And so this is one example. We have many other examples. So that is, if there is a problem, the tendency is that we are going to have a startup.
So there's a related question here that I want to put to Stefan, and this question comes from Dr. T. Trelau. There is currently huge pressure to reduce pesticide use while maintaining productivity. This is particularly challenging with climate change increasing pressure on plants in terms of stress and pests. Could you please elaborate on which strategies are considered in Brazil in order to tackle this? Stefan?
Yes. Well, I cannot from the policy, Brazilian policy, I cannot give this view. But certainly there is also in research, and I can just only put it in a general terms here, there is certainly the initiative and also the need to have a pathway towards pesticides-free agriculture. And this is, I can just do it from the German lens now that we have currently an initiative where we have a pesticides-free agriculture initiative. That does not mean nobody uses pesticides, but that research is seeking for pathways to reduce the use. And this is one concept that is fostered tremendously at the moment also in Germany from several ministries, is the agroecology approach, but then also in a holistic view. That means, holistic view means here that one try to transform the entire food system, if possible, towards a more healthy food system without or with reduced inputs in terms of pesticides, and to come to more sustainable systems. And agroecology system would be one food system approach, agroecology, that one see, yes, this is a transformation that happens. And there are many, 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 I would say, researchers, it's transformative research, looking for how we can come to a more sustainable agriculture. And one entry point is here sustainable consumption. That means that the consumer decides to pay even a little bit more for pesticide-free agriculture, because of course it is, because of lowered yield, it is also per hectare a little bit more expensive, maybe, to cope with this.
Michel, same question to you. When we're looking at reducing pesticide use, but also responding to the effects of climate change, are there going to be difficulties there?
Definitely. I think there is a big challenge for agriculture around the world. And I think here I added to what Stefan just said. I think agroecology is one approach that has been increasing a lot in the last decades. Internationally, it has been recognized by the main international bodies like FAO, promoting also big events to promote agriculture in terms of agroecology, or under the structure or the lens of agroecology. Of course, we had then to also problematize what is agroecology, because there is different definitions and there is different kinds of applications. But definitely, agroecology brings many support for how to produce, decreasing the external inputs, and how to concentrate on the circularity of the systems. And here is also connected with needs and change overall, and in terms of sustainability, for example, how we could address more circular system, more circular economy, how people can close the cycles, and then also again connected with the role of all the stakeholders on doing a system that is more sustainable in terms of agriculture production.
Enrique, from a startup perspective and thinking about technologies, is this a business opportunity here for people who want to find solutions of reducing pesticides, but also making sure that we're ready for the effects of climate change and that yields don't drop?
Yes, Dave, definitely. As I said before, one of the main technologies, the main solutions that we are facing in Brazil are the biological control. So a lot of companies, a lot of researchers actually saw that the usage of pesticide, it has a lot of bad results, bad consequences. So they already start thinking about how we could avoid this. So we started developing a lot of biological controls, not only inside the productivity on the animals, but also for the plants, for usage in both usages. And also there is this opportunity that are evolving and are emerging of thinking about the climate change that we can connect inside these technologies as well. So I always like to see that coming from a bad situation, we need to see the opportunities that we can improve from this bad situation. So I believe that this question, I believe that this point, actually, it's the perfect example for this. Thank you, Dave.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to take one more question from the audience. So this question is for Eduardo. It's from Thais Suarez, sorry again, Mr. Suarez, or Ms. Suarez if I'm mispronouncing the name. This is from the Helmholtz Center of Environmental Research. Agroecology is promoted by IPBES as important for biodiversity conservation and climate. Is the ministry planning to start investing in technologies not focused on monocultures? And how is the MOA Ministry of Agriculture preparing for the climate crisis?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Suarez. It's a very complex issue. We have to deal with market, okay? Market wants to buy, they are willing to purchase something and not everything. We have developed here some technologies that, considering this market reality, we try to foster, we try to make farmers to diversify a little bit their production, not only soybeans. So we have this, we call what we call low carbon agricultural plan. In Portuguese, it's a very interesting name because it's ABC, Agricultura de Baixo Carbono, ABC plan. We have financing for this, and we try to make farmers to mix livestock, mainly beef cattle production, and grain crops like corn or maize and soybeans. And in ideal way, they could also add trees to the system. And then we call integration livestock, it's a very beautiful name, livestock, agriculture, livestock, and forestry. And we have some.
I think let me just give it a second. Yeah, I think we've lost Eduardo. Again, I think we got the gist of it though, Eduardo. Before we close out, we're just about out of time, but I do want to put one last question to Stefan, or how about to Michelle? It's actually a question for both Stefan and Michelle, and this is from Professor Williams Mendes. He is a professor at the Federal Institute of Education, Science and Technology in the state of Mato Grosso, which is the largest producer of grains in Brazil. He asks, how can our institutions establish partnerships to develop research together? Michelle, I'll let you take that. What are some of the ways that partnerships between these institutions can be developed?
I think definitely Stefan will add it here. But I think we had been developed a lot of projects around Latin America and of course also with Brazil. It depends a lot of what kind of calls we have. Then we have some lines and Stefan has here also mentioned the German ministry and the fundings that they destinate to cooperation in terms of research. So normally we go around one of the calls, which are definitely related to sustainability issues in agriculture, and establish case studies in cooperation with the universities, and then develop with them the structure of research. But we are normally have those big areas of research that are shaped by the calls of the ministry or, for example, also European Commission. And this is normally how the cooperation starts. But I would like to give the word to Stefan to complete my answers.
Stefan, do you have anything to add?
Only in 1 minute. The best is to be proactive and to approach exactly those centers where you're interested in, and to ask for cooperation, to start with exchange programs with students and PhDs, and then to look exactly for the financial resources in order to have an exchange on the one hand side and to have a joint development of certain innovations, I would say. And I already mentioned at the beginning all the initiatives, but there are plenty more. And in a nutshell, if you're interested, go to this researcher where you're interested in and contact this researcher, or maybe us if you want. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And just want to go back, Eduardo's back. Eduardo, did you want to finish what you were saying before?
Very quickly, yes. I said about low carbon agriculture. Then I would like to add, then people are trying to introduce forestry in this system, with a bit more of diversification, depending on the market conditions of the region. But we are fostering and we are pushing very hard in the issue of bio inputs, which has also to do with the last question. big companies, of course, they don't like this. And we registered in the last 2 years more than 200 new biopesticides. And this has to do, it's not really agroecology, but we try to at least give farmers the options of use, the options to use other products which are not the conventional pesticides. And we also have a very booming sector of organic agriculture because the market is increasing, just as in Germany, and farmers, the ones who can do it, they are jumping into organic agriculture as well.
Well, thanks very much, Eduardo, and thank you to all of our panelists for some really interesting insights today. I think we've heard a lot, not just about the past when it comes to agricultural innovation in Brazil, but also about the present and about the future. And certainly when we're thinking about sustainability and climate change, as Eduardo was just saying, there are a lot of challenges there, but a lot of, I think, potential for innovation to solve some of these challenges. So I hope you've enjoyed today's event and found it informative. If you'd like to rewatch either the English or the German versions, you can find them on the Euractiv events page archived. You can watch it back at any time you like. But that's all we have time for today. So I thank you all for spending your afternoon with us, and I wish you all a wonderful evening. Take care.